Hello everyone, it's Theo from Theo Spanish Fast Learning and welcome back for another video on the channel. Today we're gonna be talking about word stress and accentuation, written accentuation in Spanish, and you'll see it's not that hard actually to understand how it works in Spanish. So yeah, let's do so. Let's have a look on the rules in Spanish. There are actually three of them, three rules that you need to learn in order to know how to pronounce a word, how to sound like when you're putting the stress in a Spanish word, like to which letter are you supposed to put the intonation, and let's learn it. So, as I said, there are three rules, and the first one is concerning the word that are ending with a vowel, so basically A, E, I, O, or U, or N, or S. Only those letters at the end of a word, and it means that the stress of this word is gonna be on the vowel which is in the last but one syllable. So you need to count starting by the end, and it's not the last one but the one before. So here you have examples of words like ending in vowel N or S and their pronunciation. So you're supposed to pronounce mano, and it's feminine and it means hand. You're supposed to pronounce coche, it's masculine and means car. You're supposed to pronounce hablan, which means they speak, and you're supposed to pronounce eres, which is you are. So those are examples for words ending in vowel N or S. So what about the other ones? Well, it works like that. Words ending in consonants by a consonant which is not N or S are stressed on the vowel from the last syllable. We have example there, like for example, pared, which is feminine and means wall, and decid, which is the imperative form of say. And the third and last rule concerns the word that won't follow the two first rules. I mean, those words are basically exceptions, and for those you will need to learn them. I mean, there's no secret. Obviously, you will find exceptions. Each and every rules, like when you're learning something, has an exception, and many of them sometimes. But yeah, for those words you will need to learn them and how it works. Basically, for the words that don't follow the two first rules, you will need a written accent in order to force the stress on a specific vowel, a different one from the vowel from the syllable the stress should be actually. So let's explain a little bit how it works, like for the two examples I've chosen. The first one is murciélago. It's masculine and means bat. But why do you need an accent on the E? Well, it's because the letter which is stressed is this E. And if you don't put any accent above the E, the letter you should stress should be the A, because the word is ending in O, and when the word is ending in O, the letter that you should stress is the vowel from the last but one syllable. So in this case, if you don't put any accent above the E, the word should be pronounced murciélago, and the word in Spanish is not pronounced murciélago, it's pronounced murciélago. So you need an accent above the E. And it's the same case with the second example I've chosen, which is último. If you don't put any accent above the U, the letter that should be stressed is the I, and the I is not the letter stressed in this case, it's the U. And the U, in order to be stressed, need an accent above, because if you don't put any accent above the U, you will pronounce último, and we don't want to pronounce último or última. We want, in Spanish, the word is pronounced último or última, and it's masculine or feminine and means last, as a noun, obviously. An extra information about monosyllabic words, like words with only one syllable, those ones are not stressed. I mean, it's quite logical because, I mean, there's only one vowel in them, so what should difference one vowel from another if you have only one vowel in the word anyway? So, but I mean, in Spanish, those are not stressed. Be careful, I mean, they're not stressed. That doesn't mean that they don't have any written accent in them. We'll see that at the end of the video. You can find monosyllabic word with written accent, but the written accent is not there to indicate any word stress by any means. But we'll see that later in the video. So, right now I've I have created some tips, make a selection of some tips for you in order to understand and to notice a little bit some kind of patterns that can help you to analyze word stress in Spanish. So first tip I can give you is concerning verbs, and more especially infinitive verbs and verbs conjugated at vosotros or vosotras in imperative mode. And those are stressed on the last syllable because they're ending in R or D. R in infinitive and D for the imperative form of vosotros, vosotras. This follows perfectly the rule, the second one, because those words are ending in consonant that is not N or S, so basically they're accentuated in the last syllable. But it's something that you can learn. It's stable, if you are facing an infinitive verb or a verb that is imperative form of vosotros or vosotras, it would basically be accentuated on the last syllable. But be careful, because it's for the normal form of them. Because in conjugation system you have a phenomenon called Enclesis or Enclesis in Spanish, which is actually a phenomenon that is meant to stick pronouns at the end of some verbal forms, and those verbal forms are basically imperative, infinitive, and progressive forms. And actually, it can basically mix things up with word stress, because if you're adding some syllables in the word, it can move the word stress, and you might need sometimes written accents, in order to put the word stress where it should really be. So let me explain a little bit what I mean with stuff and Enclesis. Basically, in Spanish, you will have to follow some patterns in order to be logical when you're trying to stress a word and pronouncing it. You have basically the raw forms of some verbs, and then you have the forms with pronouns. But basically, all those forms are meant to be pronounced the same way, or to be stressed on the same letter, in order to keep a coherence when you're pronouncing words. Because if you conjugated a verb at different tenses and the stress is not on the same syllable, it will be there would be no coherence, right? So in order to keep this coherence, you will need sometimes to put written accents in order to stay coherent. So let's have a look at those examples. Hazmelo, which is the first I've chosen, which means do it for me in imperative mode. You have a written accent because the letter which is stressed is the A, the A, and the word is ending in O, and obviously it should be the E that should be accentuated, but in this case it's the A, so the A, so you need to put an accent above the A in order to force the stress on this A. Second example, hacerlo, it's the E that accentuated, so you don't need any accent, any written accent, and it's the infinitive form of do it. The third example, haciéndolo, like the progressive form, doing it, and the letter that is stressed is like the E. So you need an accent above, because if you don't put an accent, it would be the do, the O of the do syllable that is stressed, and we don't want that. The fourth example, decídmelo, is like the imperative forms of tell me it. So we want the I to be stressed, so you need an accent in this case. Fifth example is decirlo, tell it, in infinitive form. We don't need any written accent in order to have the I stressed. And the last one, the sixth one, is diciéndomelo. This is the progressive form of telling me it, and basically we want the E to be stressed, and we need an accent, obviously, because if we don't do so, it would be the last E, the last one of the syllable me, that would be stressed, and we don't want that. But basically, how can you recognize which vowel should be stressed? Because if you know which vowel is stressed, basically you know that you can or not need a written accent. But how can you know which vowel is stressed? Well, basically you need to ask yourself the question, what is the reduced forms of some verbs that use enclesis? If you have enclesis, basically you have pronouns, one pronoun or several pronouns sticked at the end, at the end of the word, and you need to ask yourself the question, what should be the form if you don't have those pronouns at the end? And if you know which letter is stressed for those raw forms, like the form without any pronoun, basically you will know which vowel will be stressed with pronouns. And in this case, if you know which letter is supposed to be stressed, then you know if you will need or not a written accent, basically. So let's see how it works. For example, with the first example, like those six are like the same as the six we saw before. So you can make links between like those stuff. So in the first example we have hazmelo. We had in the examples hazmelo. So the raw form of hazmelo is basically hazme. And in this case, hazme, you can see that it's ending with an E, so the rules say that you need to stress the last but one vowel, the vowel from the last but one syllable, so the A in this case. So you need to say hazme. So it would be the same vowel that you need to stress with the new pronoun added in the hazmelo form. But in this case, if you don't put any accent on the A won't be accentuated, so you need a written accent in order like to be coherent, like it's hazme, hazmelo. So it's the same, but in order for it to be pronounced the same, you need to put a written accent in the hazmelo form. What happens with the second example we had? We had hacerlo. But what's the raw form of hacerlo? When you quit the pronoun, you only have hacer. And hacer is a word that's ending with a consonant, so it's stressed on the last syllable. What about the hacerlo form? You have right now a new syllable, which is the pronoun lo. So it might have changed something, right? But no, actually it didn't, because right now the word is ending with a vowel. So basically, the syllable that's accentuated is right now the last but one. So it concerns the E again. So in this case, you don't need any written accent to like move the stress, because naturally it moved to the right syllable. So that's why you don't need to add any form of written accent in this case. Third example was haciéndolo. Haciéndolo, the raw form is like haciendo, it's the progressive form. In the form haciendo, the vowel accentuated is like the E from the last but one syllable. But in haciéndolo, you're adding a syllable, so basically you need a written accent on the E in order to keep it on the E. Fourth example was decídmelo, and it comes from the root decid in imperative. Decid is actually stressed on the last I. So I decided to put a middle example in order to tell you how it works. So if you put decid with only one pronoun, it works like the second example. You don't need any written accent because the I is still stressed. But in the last example, decídmelo, you have two pronouns at the end, so basically you will need a written accent on the I in order to keep the logical stress. Fifth example was decirlo. So basically, decirlo comes from the infinitive decir, which is stressed on the I, and it's basically the same example as the second one. You will have decirlo, and you don't need any written accent, because right now the word is ending with a vowel, so the last but one syllable is stressed, and as we have a new syllable in the word, the I is already stressed. And for the last example, diciéndomelo is like a form, progressive form with two pronouns at the end. So basically, you will need a written accent on the E in order to keep the stress on the same vowel than you had in the first word that was diciendo, the progressive form of decir. So yeah, basically it might be quite confusing stuff at the beginning, but I mean, if you keep manipulating words like and asking yourself the good questions like what's the raw form, like the basic form of the verb I have with Enclesis and so much pronoun at the end, and you're like that, what should I be stressing, which vowel is stressed in this case, do I need a written accent? Well, ask yourself the good questions, and you'll see it's quite easy if you ask yourself the question like what is the reduced form, and if you see what the reduced form is supposed to offer as stressed syllable, then you can adapt the complex forms depending of or if you need a written accent or not. Let's continue and let's move on to other tips, like the second one, which is like the contrary in conjugation. Like if you have many patterns, like for example in present, the pattern is like quite the same for all the conjugation, and the conjugation in present are basically ending with a vowel, an N or an S. So that's why all the vowels are the same, accentuated. So like for example, the verb hablar is like accentuated on the A each time, except obviously for nosotros and vosotros, but in each cases it's accentuated on the last but one syllable. Hablamos also. Habláis, in order to do so you need a written accent, but basically it's accentuated on last but one syllable because all the conjugation in present follows the first rule that's ending with a vowel, an N or an S. So yeah, that's also a tip that you can notice in the conjugation system. Right now, let's focus on monosyllabic homophones and particular plurals with written accent. I told you at the beginning of the video that we were going to go back on monosyllabic homophones, monosyllabic words, and we're also gonna focus on particular plurals and the stuff with written accent that can not only be to mean the word stress, we also have written accent in order to change the meaning of some words, and that's the case of monosyllabic homophones. So let's focus on some of them that I've chosen for you. We have, for example, the first one, which is L, and means the without the written accent, but with a written accent, it means L, as he or him. And in this case, L and L are the same. Basically, you don't have a different pronunciation, because in this case, we have monosyllabic words. So, as I told you, monosyllabic words don't have any stress, because there's only one vowel in them. So here, the written accent is not there to change by any means the intonation. It's just there to change the meaning of the word. So in this case, L without accent is the, and L with an accent is he or him. So that's also the case of the two following examples, like to without accent is your, and to with an accent is you as a subject or as an object. And we also have C without accent, which means if, and C with an accent, which which meaning is yes. Why did I change something about the word solo? It's because solo is not a monosyllabic word, but it also works like the first examples that I've told about. Solo is a plurisyllabic word because it has two syllables, but basically the word solo without accent and with accent are meant to be pronounced the same, solo and solo. And the first one without accent means alone, and the second one means only. And those one are accentuated on the last but one syllable. Both of them, they are stressed. They are stressed because they are plurisyllabic word. The three first ones, like those one, are not stressed by any means, but those one for sure are stressed on the O. That's why I put it in red. So yeah, be careful, like monosyllabic words are not stressed, the written accent is just there to change the meaning, and this one is also there to change the meaning, but it's still stressed on the O. But both of them are stressed on the O, so I mean, the stress can't determine which word you're talking about. So in pronunciation, alone and only are the same word in Spanish, basically. You need to be careful when you're writing them and to choose if you're putting or not an accent above the O. And we're gonna be ending this video with particular plurals. So yeah, basically, if you have understood, the beginning of the video about words and the pronouns, Enclesis, and things like that, particular plurals won't be like that big of a deal for you, because basically it's the same mechanics. In some particular words, when you're putting plural version of them, you're adding one syllable because the word is ending with a consonant. In both of my examples in there, it's ending with an N, and you need a E in between the S from the plural form and the consonant, which is the N. So you will have an extra syllable, and in some cases it will move the stress, so you will need a written accent, or you won't need the written accent anymore, basically, so that the same vowel is stressed. So let's focus on the two examples I've chosen for you. The first one is joven, and in plural it is jóvenes. So in order for the O to be stressed in both cases, you need to add a written accent in the plural form, because if you don't do so, the plural form would be pronounced jóvenes, and obviously we want it to be pronounced jóvenes as the same for joven. So both words mean young in singular and youngs in plural, and obviously in plural form a written accent becomes necessary. And we have the reversed example with like violin and violines, which is basically like the contrary. We have a written accent in singular in order for the last syllable to be stressed and not the last but one, because it's ending in N. so it should be the last but one, but in singular we want the last syllable to be stressed, the last I, and not the O from the last but one syllable. So we need a written accent so that the E from violin is stressed. But in plural, it's not necessary anymore because we have an extra syllable, the word is ending in S, so basically the last but one syllable is meant to be stressed, so you don't need that written accent anymore. It's not necessary anymore, so basically we have violin with a written accent in singular and violines without any accent in plural. So that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you've learned something. I hope like you enjoyed the video. If it's the case, don't hesitate to like it, subscribe, comment, and share it with your friends. And we'll see you in the next video, guys. I hope you have an amazing day. Take care, guys.